It's another draft physics video production. Yeah, that's what it is. Sorry. Morning, Doing these videos in the morning. Don't know if that's a great idea, but that's how it's worked out. So anyway, we'll do some comments and see where it takes us. I'm not a native speaker, so sorry if mine claim that your theory seems nice might have seemed rude in another video. Looks like everything is made of electrons, protons, and it would seem off that there would be a lot of different kinds of forces pulling them. Yes, pull is not a good idea as a concept. Just arms and all that stuff you need. When push is really easy, you just have to bang into something. And such. Push is much more intuitive. It's not just that it's intuitive. I mean, it's more than that. It's deeper. It's logical. It's not intuitive that you understand that most of the things you pull on, you're really pushing on. That even if you pull a hair, for example, you're really pushing on the surfaces that are offering the resistance through friction. So it's not exactly intuitive in that sense of the use of the word intuitive. And pull always seems a bit off. Well, it's off in the sense that the poles are inverted pushes, yes. This one easily explains how atoms form, magnets, and gravity, and more. Yes, that's what it does. So he says, awesome, thanks, because I responded to the other comment. That was a comment that I guess was missed because somebody put it in the spam folder, I guess. I thought there was something wrong with it. So anyway. So holidays always gotta be such a jerk. Anyway. So I agree. So I point out that the only reason why they say there's no magnetic monopoles is because Maxwell's math basically has split a single force into two forces, and they can't account for it because they have too many monopoles, essentially. And so they can't conceive of the truth, which is that charge is the foundation of magnetism. Okay, the charge really is the first thing that happens, the identity of the electron. And then they really broke it when they start making things they know are charged, like electrons, into dipoles. I mean, it's so bad. Okay, in a strange way, even orthodox physics agrees, so he always does this. Oh, but they don't mean what they say. I mean, when Professor Lewin says you're going to get the Nobel Prize for finding a monopole, he doesn't mean that's it has nothing to do with making a real point. He's not really asserting that there's no monopoles. He's just pretending. It's just not spoke about too much. No, the exact opposite is stated aggressively. They aggressively state it, okay? They don't just mildly state it. It's one of Maxwell's equations. One of his equations is simply the equation that says there's no monopoles. So you can get rid of one of them because it just doesn't mean anything. So what are you talking about? They don't really believe it. Come on. I've made videos bringing attention to it in regards of the existence of their fields of abstract pointy numbers. Yes, well, that again is a different concept, isn't it? I mean, we're not talking about necessarily field theory. We're talking about electrodynamics and how bad they've messed that up. But whatever. I mean, clearly my theory complements their more modern notion that the universe is a bunch of points in space in 3 dimensions. But again, there's a huge hypocrisy there because they claim there's another 4th dimension. The point I've made to this end is that it's supposed to be relatively easy to unify all the other so-called fundamental forces save gravity. Well, let's just say that the only ones that really matter, the only ones that are real, are the idea of charge and magnetism. And I'm just arguing that they're the same force, kind of obviously. And the fact that the permutivity and the permeability of space as idiotic constants are directly correlatable to the speed of light sort of proves it. They know the forces move the speed of light. They don't move the permeability of space or the permutivity of space. So that's just crap. All right. And obviously, gravity's the complication, in the sense that gravity is a phenomenon that doesn't happen to monopoles. It's something that happens to dipoles. Okay, and they plot, dipoles in the sense of mixed dipoles. Dipoles that are undoing each other's influence. And they plot graphs in time where eventually the forces unify. Well, you say so. Which is to say simply that you can no longer observe a distinguishing effect between them. The experiments sort of are geared to identify a kind of, they're always looking for a phenomenon. So if they're playing with electricity or they're playing with magnets, and they're going to decide to call the effect of attraction or repulsion magnetic when they're playing with magnets, and electric when they're playing with electricity. But yes, it's the same. The thing causing the attraction and the thing causing the repulsion is the same. To this orthodoxy, I ask, what sense is the electric field or magnetic field or weak nuclear field concretely or fundamentally real or not emergent? I don't even know why you would bother saying that, in the sense that clearly they've identified it as a real thing, in the sense that they're saying there's something there, but they're calling it a virtual photon because they can't account for its existence. Where did it come from? So I would argue that the simple answer for where did it come from is that it was on the outside, that it is fundamental, and it isn't emergent. The behavior is emergent from the fundamental existence of the pressure. And then you can just go to gravity and see the obvious, in my opinion, kind of obvious, that all these big things in space are hot, especially in their cores. And where did the energy come for all of that? You can't make that go away. In terms of, you can't just talk about trajectories and it takes as much energy to go into the gravity as it takes to go out of the gravity. Well, that's fine, but where did all that heat come from? But for our purposes here, I don't think we have common purposes. A question arises. In orthodox physics, the electric force, so again, there's no electric force, there's the phenomenon of electricity. And I would argue that I've already stated kind of clearly that all that is a transfer of pressure between atoms. Atom on the left has got more pressure, atom on the right has got lower pressure. I share my pressure with the higher pressure, and then I end up sharing my pressure with the lower pressure, and I just keep compromising. And that will make the phenomenon of the flow from high to low. Alright, is stupendously more powerful than magnetic force. Well, that's just this distinction between isolating something and not isolating it. So clearly the charges are much more effective as charges the least polluted they are. So it's just the purple idea. When the blue is over here and the red is over here, there's very little purple. When I put them together, there's lots of purple. That's fundamentally the distinction, but again, we observe charge on surfaces that are very large. And it's also a matter of voltage. Magnets don't have the same kind of voltage thing, where you can just crank up the voltage and therefore crank up the power of the dipole. The little atoms only have so much to give, and like I said, so if you want to, they do use electromagnets to make powerful magnets for a reason, but that's about all. I'm just saying there's no point in comparing distinctions that have to do with physical differences. Magnets it's the material, not a surface phenomenon. It happens in usually conductive, materials. Would be if they weren't doped. Let's say that. Let's see. Well, anyway, we'll go on. Let's see. Materials and the magnetic force. This is shown in the strength of materials and the fact that they're solid and do not merge through each other. Well, that's, you're just talking about the power of the repulsion of electrons. That, yes, electrons repel each other, and the repulsion gets very powerful the closer they get. So you have to change their positions in space if they are going to blend into each other. They're just not going to do that without the pressure increasing. But magnetism is observed in the same solid materials. And that doesn't say anything to me, so I don't know what your point is. I've sort of pointed out that polarizing or pressurizing an atom means you could be changing the position of the electron relative to the proton. And as you do that, you make something more or less charged. So it's not that surprising that the profile of the atom changes as you change the distance between the electron and the proton. Exhibiting the usual electrical repulsion, but also, and only in regards to certain materials, is capable of extending way beyond the material surface. Both effects have rules about how far they extend, and as I've pointed out, magnetism is the one that's the weakest because of the fact that the dipole creates a place where the two charges are mixing more. So they can't possibly be as strong as the independent charges. They can't possibly have as much charge potential when they're close together, because half of their charge potential is being diluted by something creating an opposite effect on a test charge, positive or negative. Alright, this would be a good argument for the existence of two different effects, it seems. Well, I don't see it as a good argument. You have to show me the experiment that indicates that the fundamental cause of the attraction, the movement of the material. Let's talk about the movement of the matter. That's how we see these effects. And I would argue that there's nothing fundamentally different in the movement, and the only thing you're really changing is how much you're diluting the charge. Magnets dilute the charge. Their argument, question mark, I don't know. And it seems you haven't accounted. See, I love, this is the stuff that just makes me want to bash them over the head with a brick. I mean, they're just so stupid. And it seems you haven't accounted for these differing effects in differing circumstances. So it seems, where do you get the seems from? I mean, we went through all this before, which is kind of ironic, right? I mean, he showed the charged balloons, and you were talking about some kind of thing about something about how they moved and everything else, and I explained, how, no, that's clearly understandable. It's a Venn diagram, 250,000 volts, blah, 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 blah. I mean, what wasn't explained? So, yeah, this is just so irritating. All right. All right. Different circumstances. So it's just these accusations he makes, that I haven't done something, that somehow he found some hole that I didn't argue or defend. Just so irritating, because it doesn't come with any quotes or any citations. It's just a bullshit accusation. I think what orthodox physics is saying, how much do I care what you think it's saying, because you think it doesn't mean what it says ever. So it's just such bullshit. You won't argue the rational argument they're making. You'll argue what I think they really think. So this is just crap. Is that this tiny magnetic effect actually exists in a strange spinning electron. So here we go. So what, you believe in this spin crap? Fine. I'm saying I don't see any need for it, and I don't see any anything that can make it mathematically or rational, to start creating accelerations, that are going to, but they're just way too complicated for this simple behavior. Then electrons wouldn't appear to be the same at all. They'd appear very different if they were all spinning, because they'd all end up spinning different. There'd be no reason for them to have same spins in any kind. They'd end up with all kinds of different variants in spin. It's just useless, in my opinion. I don't know why it was introduced. It was introduced because planets spin and they rotate around suns. And this is the worst thing about spin, is they don't even make a distinction between the difference between spinning around something and spinning on your own axis. So half of spin theory is saying, no, it's the electron is actually spinning and it's some kind of dipole. So even though it has a clear charge, they're calling it a dipole, which doesn't make any sense. It's clearly negative. They're clearly saying that somehow it has a positive portion somewhere, which doesn't make any sense at all. It never displays this function. It just doesn't make any sense. All right. It is just so tiny not to be measurable practically. So again, so then you say it exists, but you can't measure it. And what would its role be? What role would it play? I say it plays no role. It's incoherent and nonsensical to pretend electrons are dipoles when they exhibit no feature of a dipole. And further to the Stern-Gerlach experiment, well, again, we've already been over this, right? There's no evidence they've done the experiment with electrons. They do the experiment with atoms. And what kind of atoms? Atoms that are extremely hot. So they're essentially doing the experiment with a plasma. And we're surprised that those plasma atoms would have a charge. Well, I'm not terribly surprised. I've forgotten the details, but following it, they say they measured the angular momentum of electrons directly. That's what I'm saying, is they say more than one thing. First, they say the electrons are spinning on their own axis, and then they say, which is and then they offer the more rational explanation, which is they're really talking about the spin of the electron around the proton, and that the atom polarity changes with the spin of the electron, just as I'm sort of pointing out that this becomes if the electron's here and the proton's here, you're going to see negative. The electron's here and the proton's here, you're going to see a magnet oriented north-south. Then you're going to see a proton charge. And then over here you're going to see a south-north magnet. So the magnetic effects would dampen each other out clearly, because it would be inverted. And the charge, positive and then negative, would be inverted. And so as long as that speed is fast, no object could react. Okay, the interaction would be happening so fast that no object would see anything but a neutral, depending on the spin, depending on the speed of the spin. All right. And further to this, I've forgotten details, but following it, okay, we already did. Actually, it might be indirectly. Yes, actually it might be so indirectly that they shouldn't be saying that they're learning about electrons by throwing atoms through the experiment. So again, I'm just saying, it just seems kind of silly to throw atoms in and then pretend those are electrons, because they're not electrons directly. But that experiments need chasing down to disprove spin, I would think. So again, I don't need to disprove it, frankly. I've already provided a theory that just doesn't need it. It doesn't provide any useful behavioral cause. They need spin because they have to try to figure out why there's a positive and a negative. They have to figure out why their virtual photons somehow can make things attract and repel. So they have to invent some mechanism. And I'm kind of arguing the mechanism they're trying to use, I think, is spin, because they don't have to account for its existence. Okay, they could just say it exists, and They can just make it clockwise and counterclockwise or some other bullshit. Now, I would argue in 3 dimensions, counterclockwise and clockwise becomes a little bit irrelevant. It goes the whole idea that you have to create a north and a south pole on an electron and it's spinning on an... I mean, it's just a little bit too complicated. And most of the experiments with electrons indicate they just don't have those features. But whatever. So, again, I just say fuck you for this accusation that somehow I haven't accounted for something. You're the one who brought up this crap. You bring up crap and I've addressed it. You just don't really have a right to say, oh no, you never did this, you never did that. That's just horseshit. If you got some doubt about an interpretation of some experiment, then provide it. Cite it. And I'll either decide to give a shit or not. Alright. Laughing my ass off. Well, whatever. I don't know for what reason. So I guess I'll just say who cares and just say try again, make a real comment maybe. Whatever. Yes, sometimes I'm funny. But some people think I'm funny in a very bad way. Can't really tell what you're saying, is the point. So, Tea Party guy's just going to keep pushing his luck. Well then, please speak about evolution. Well, I don't, it's just sort of insulting the channel. I mean, it does say DraftScience, but it's always really been physics. Alright, that's the subject here. It's pretty clear. So, fuck you. Okay. My curiosity about human evolution is making me question how many times it's happened before. Well, you can question all the fucking shit you want. My point is you've done no research. You just don't really care to get an answer to the question beyond hearing somebody's opinion. Right? Because the details of evolution are the details. Charles Darwin wrote a whole book, explaining all kinds of environmental circumstances that appear to be just like human circumstances. Like we breed pigeons, and we've made pigeons into bizarre-looking birds, and so he made the correlation between natural selection on the islands and the Galapagos and all that kind of stuff. Now, if you're not going to make yourself aware of all that crap, fuck you. What's the point? You just want to hear somebody who believes what you believe validate what you validate, and that's it. Maybe my question is more philosophical than science related. The point is you're not inquiring in any kind of honest way. Like you're saying, I want to fully understand by hearing you tell me what the truth is. And that's not how it works. I'm sorry. You do have to go through some of the grit of it. Now, maybe you're asking me to give you the grit. Well, that's really not my job. I mean, the basic science is out there. You can get it on the internet. You don't need me to explain to you all of the fossil record or to explain to you, all of what science has done with the information that exists and why it's drawn certain conclusions. I want to know the odds of other life. Well, I can tell you they're long because they haven't happened on this planet. This planet is covered with the parts to make DNA molecules, just zillions of pieces of amino acids, all kinds of complex compounds, very rich. And there's no second form of life. There's no other DNA molecule. There's only the one. We're all related to one molecule. That's just a fact. So, the odds are pretty thin. Even our galaxy and clearly nothing intelligent. The rest of the universe has had a head start on us. There's places in the universe that are billions and billions of years older than we are. Okay, our solar system. And obviously none of those solar system has produced anything that's speeding around in the universe. Is the question for another channel? Yes, but it's still a question that's just so primitive. Like, again, what do you exactly want? You want me to give you a high school education? Well, I'm not going to do that. Trillions of galaxies, super curious. Whatever that means. Yes, people are really fucked up. And you're an example. By the way, you're hilarious. Who cares? Even when you curse me out. Whatever. There are people dumber than me. That just makes me feel so special. And that's your excuse, right? So that's every criminal can say, "Hey, there's criminals worse than me." What's the big deal? Yeah, I only murdered one person. That's people I didn't murder 5 or 10 or 15. What are you bothered by? But they don't bother me that much. Exactly, that's the whole problem. Idiots don't bother idiots. Not a threat. Amazing. They're idiots, not a threat. So you would let an idiot drive a bus, not a threat. Because that's what they're doing, idiot. I mean, he's one of these Tea Party assholes, and he doesn't get that. Oh yeah, democracy sometimes doesn't work because there's idiots voting. Fuck. Anyway. Ken is a horrible polyp on the colon of humanity. Well, I don't know. Look, a colon's a pretty shitty thing anyway, but whatever. Pretty shitty. It's so funny because it's true. I don't know if it is. I don't know if it's that funny. It's not really a great argument. So this is some sort of asshole who thinks people should be doing this cliches in Spanish, I guess, right? This is like some sort of whatever will be, la la la, some kind of la la la, bullshit. Oh, fucking goddamn people. I think we'll just say goodbye, Ed. It's just kind of rude, I think. You should do the translating and then post your crap. You shouldn't force the audience to all go out and say, what the fuck does that mean? So, fuck you. I'm just so sick of people. I mean, there's just so many people now in America who don't think they have any obligation to speak anything like a language that can be understood. And it's just horseshit. So he's quoting me. You're an ignorant fuck. Yes, that's what he was. And you're arrogant as fuck. Yes, that's the argument. Arrogance is the idea of being underqualified and thinking you're overqualified. Damn, it's like you're talking to a mirror. How so? He admits he doesn't know shit. I admit no such thing. I admit that I do know a lot. I've spent my life inquiring and looking into and reading and doing all that crap, and I haven't spent too much time anyway watching the Flintstones. I mean, I did spend it's always too much time, right? Any of the trivial crap we do is a waste of time. So I have spent some of my life doing, in trivial pursuits. But I have also spent many hours investigating and doing the work. So fuck you. Unlike him, I'm not claiming ignorance. I'm claiming prove me wrong. That's what I'm claiming. I'm claiming show me better evidence than the evidence I'm just showing. I've never seen so much projection. Who cares? I've seen tons of stupid, vacant arguments being made by asswipes like yourself. And lack of self-awareness. And you're aware of what? I mean, you're going to be proven to be an asshole. I mean, I am fucking right. It's just the facts. And so what? And so you just did this little shit talking as if you know better, when you didn't demonstrate that you do know better. Did you prove somewhere that you know more about physics than I do? Did you prove that you've watched more double slit experiments or had a piece of paper in front of you and tried to think through the interferometer and how it actually works? Like what would happen if a single photon went in, or what if multiple photons? Where does the interference happen? Did you do any of that work? I don't think you did. Fuck you. Okay, self-aware from someone before. And then he responds to his own comment. And you seriously have fucked filtered on this channel. Have fuck filtered on this channel. I do? I'm surprised it's me, but you don't see the difference between saying it and writing it. I sort of do see a difference. But, as far as I remember, I think the only words I have are faggot and the N word. So fuck you. I don't think fuck is filtered. And how much you say it yourself. with how much you say it yourself. Wow, just another blatant example of your hypocrisy, I guess. There's no hypocrisy. I've shown the channel what the words are that are blocked before, and like I said, I don't think fuck is on there. So I don't know what to tell you. Maybe it's a thing Google does when people put fucking quotes or something. I don't know. I haven't tried, so I guess I could reply and we'll see if I can say fuck. Fuck. Let's see. Yep, no problem. Not filtered. So you're just another liar, right? Another stupid bullshit liar. Making claims that just aren't true. Amazing. So, everybody test it yourself. At your own leisure. Shit, fuck, cunt. See, I think they'll probably all work. So, yeah, fuck you, Bob. Just another guy who just makes accusations. There's lots of points I've made, bold assertions even. You should be able to counter-argue some of them. I mean, you should be able to defend gravitational lens. You can defend the fact that the lens is the wrong shape. Go ahead. Knock yourself out. Alright. Robert Ritchie. Around 23, you are making assertions that I don't believe atoms make magnets. The assertion I made is I have no clue what your nutty theory of electrodynamics is, because yes, you're saying gravity is magnetic when there's no indication of dipoles anywhere in sight or polarity playing any role at all, and then you say things like what's the other thing you said that just indicate you don't think magnets are made out of magnets. That the big magnet is made out of a bunch of little magnets. That is, the atoms being in alignment. So you don't believe in magnetic domains and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm just saying, well, what evidence indicates to you that that theory is incorrect? That the atom's orientation is this origin of the polarity. All right, anyway. I do believe atoms make magnets. And I also believe that electrons and protons are by themselves small magnets. So here we go again. Another guy who thinks elements of charge, clearly charged. Electrons always behave as negative electrons, and it's just the way they always behave. So I don't understand. The disagreement I have with your theory is that you are theorizing electrons are magnetic monopoles. Well, yeah, and I'm saying, by what definition can you possibly come up for what a magnetic monopole would look like? You give me a list of what a magnetic monopole would look like, and I'll tell you that the electron will fit everything on that list, and so will the proton. It'll be a perfect candidate. I believe electrons are magnetic dipoles. Well, you can keep telling me what you believe. I'm saying there's absolutely, in my opinion, not one single piece of experimental evidence that will ever indicate that electrons have any kind of positive monopole, that they are in fact a dipole. So, fuck you. Reference magnetic circuits? What the fuck does that even mean? How does that prove that an electron has a positive hidden somewhere on it? Some secret dipole. Just fuck you. Anyway, Jonathan, what will it take for you people to realize he really has no clue what he's talking about? So completely, again, vacant. So if you have a clue what you're talking about, why don't you explain how an electron doesn't fit the definition of the magnetic monopole? That the shape of the atom, based on how far away the electron is from the proton, is exactly what conceptually creates a magnetic dipole. And that you line those all up and they become a big magnet. How is that not consistent with the truth? Fuckhead. How do atoms not behave like tiny little magnets when they're polarized? When they're ionized? No, I won't get an answer, of course. Alright. Your arguments are terrible. So, And this is the example of a good argument. I mean, it's just so amazing. So I could make a video just telling somebody your arguments are terrible. I could make a video to Professor Lewin. I could just say your arguments are terrible, and that would be a great argument. Yeah, it's just hilariously stupid. Let's just see who the fuck this asshole is. Just so bad. So whatever this image is, who the fuck knows? Got a picture of a brain in a jar. Oh, it's probably some kind of conspiracy nut. Let's see. Hold and release. So, oh, look at this. He's all I got big muscles. I'm all muscular. I have a really micro penis guy. Easy biohack. Oh, wonderful. What's that? Forcing yourself to vomit or something? Anyway, yes, I don't think I'll play any of this. It'll be a little frightening. Let's see what this is. QI going tapping. Yes, the video's on. Yeah. Yeah. The beer. Look at that. I mean, it's just hilarious, this crap. So I don't know what he's doing all this for, you know. Because obviously it ain't to attract the bitches, because this will be just such a turn off.
We're going to start at the base of the skull. I'm going to hold it for some myofascial release.
Wow, exciting.
If you don't know myofascial release, you're going to want to look it up.
Yeah, yeah.
Start tapping.
Great.
This is going to drain the lymph.
Oh, cool.
This is going to open up the neck, relax some of those tight muscles.
You're right. Whatever. Yeah. That's so. Yeah. The great God's design. We need to tap it into functioning. But anyway, whatever. Your videos suck. Should I type that in the comments? Just for fun. Douchebag. Alright. So I guess we can just bomb through. I mean, these John Chappelle things are just so bad. And they never seem to fix. I mean, they've had a feedback problem. I've probably been watching this crap for a year now or more. And, you know, it's constant problem. They just never get these audio things fixed. And it's just so annoying. And they make declarations like, well, look, you're not, you know, they kicked me out because I made some arguments, and they don't care for arguments. I mean, to the Franklin Who guy, he didn't support that decision, but, you know, to his credit. But anyway, but they say things like, okay, this isn't about creationism, this isn't religion, this isn't conspiracy theories. And then they just let this Bill guy go on and on about conspiracy theories and well, they separated the church from the state, and they gave I mean, you're saying, well, yeah, they separated, and yet they gave religions this huge tax exemption. So every other political organization has to pay taxes, but except for the religions. I mean, what a pile of crap. So anyway. But yeah, they let them just go on and on with that crap, even though they say that's not permitted. So they do seem like a bunch of creationists. So it's just veiling creationism as science, and that's all it seems to be. So, you know, this whole thing of John Chappelle, blah, 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 natural philosophy, it's just, you know, whatever, those are whatever you call that, you know, I don't know the word. It's just being subversive. I mean, it's just, you know, tricking, trying to sneak in under some idea that this is about philosophy when it's really about religion. So
just that people can do that.
So they have this, like I said, there's horrible noises. So they either got too much, some sort of gray noise in the background, or they got horrible feedback. It's just awful. All right, so let's jump ahead, but you'll just do hello. This is natural philosophy.
Well, winter, you can go pick fresh peas and just, you know, you can just eat them. You don't have to cook them or nothing. Just, you know.
Right. And they're very good.
Yes, they're very good, excellent. I think anything that you grow yourself just seems so much better.
Yeah, well, whatever. So this is just, baby talk, right? I mean, I garden, but, it has nothing to do with anything rational, because, yeah, it's a lot cheaper to buy it in the store. It's just, but whatever. Okay.
Or
Small
maybe
talk.
that's like when you go camping, anything you go, any.
You have to give congressmen money to get them to vote for stuff, and so you have to have some money, whatever you do. And
Yeah, they get it from Monsanto now, right?
yeah, they may very well get it. Yeah.
Because they go and they sue because of the
So no conspiracy theories, but I mean, this is a common one. This whole thing about how Monsanto is ruining the world or whatever. It's just such more just crap. This whole we shouldn't genetically modify. Of course we should. It should be regulated and you should be careful about it. But it's a huge advantage in terms of gaining productivity, and they pretend like it's some sort of evil science when it's really practical. It's efficient. It's sensible to go to hybridize plants the most expedient and easy way to get the better features than forcing them to repeatedly breed to attempt to do your selective breeding.
non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, I guess people have been getting from using Roundup, although I'm not exactly sure what the science is on that. But apparently billions have been awarded to people who have gotten cancer from that.
Well, I know when the Amish raise corn, for instance, you can see the distance between the corn plants and the ones that they're going to eat. So when they raise it for sale to the grocery stores and other businesses like that, they get such a high density. They get 3 times the density of corn in the field. So they get 3 times as much. And the animals.
So just more, pseudoscience bullshit. Says Bill. Does he cite any experiments? Does he cite any sources? No. He just spouts this crap. Appears my cigarette has ceased to function as designed. How very annoying. Mostly annoying. Magnetic end, I don't know. It's always something.
Will not eat that corn.
Won't eat the corn, magic corn. So okay, so they start. I didn't watch the very beginning, so I didn't know they started with magic corn.
LED lights, and they're just pretty cheap. Like you can buy this like at Harbor Freight for maybe $20 or so. And
well, you should know if you bought one how much it costs. So anyway, he's growing seeds for in the winter, which I don't know if it's a great idea, but whatever. Who cares?
Poison, which I thought was interesting, because it could be a poison. You could spray something on it that just literally kills the plant, like it would kill people. But no, it only works on the plant tissues, so that's why they think it's safe. That's why the makers of Roundup, say, yeah, we could just drink this stuff; it'll be okay, right? They say it's not going to hurt you, except apparently, if you use enough of it, it gives you non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, right? And then you can sue them and get $1 billion, apparently, right?
Yeah, and all of that's always legitimate, right? Like the whole idea of people suing because they smoked cigarettes for 50 years and then they complained that they got cancer when, Benjamin Franklin called them cancer sticks. Like somehow nobody knows that cigarettes could cause you some negative effects were potentially possible. And yet they get millions of dollars, now billions of dollars out of the tobacco companies for bullshit people saying, oh, gee, I had to pay for my risk I took. Like they didn't know. So this is all just horseshit again. There was a GM lawsuit about a car. One of GM's trucks got hit at 70 miles an hour by a pickup truck, right? An older pickup truck got hit 70 miles an hour, right on its side. Okay, right through an intersection. 70 miles an hour. The pickup truck hits it, and 4 minutes after the truck was hit, it did catch fire. And GM got sued for $28 billion or something. And the jury said yes, it makes sense. When it was proven the kid was already dead from the impact, and it had nothing to do with the fire. I mean, it just doesn't matter what the facts are. So, again, this is just pseudoscience. But anyway, I don't want to get into this crap. I wish they would just stick to physics.
Of breathing. So they're basically feeding on electric current. So I suggest that this process might be also happening even like...
So it's a crazy Russian, I guess, something like a Russian. Okay, he believes the bacteria are causing earthquakes. No, I didn't make that up. It's what he believes. I mean, what the fuck?
Well, 90% of everything we do is just crazy. But at some point, the 0.005% might actually be, right or revolutionary. That still gets filtered out. So I think like most things is that you can't filter out the good stuff without getting the bad stuff. So there's just no way to do that.
Perhaps. Yeah.
Whatever that means. But anyway, I don't know what the hell that was.
Life to appear somehow, like through some stochastic processes. But maybe it was the other way around. Maybe it was life that produced these cracks or whatever.
Well, how do we know that? I mean, just...
Okay, so they were talking about cracks in the surface of, like, Mars. Franklin somehow thinks it's, there's this big canyon on Mars and it seems unexplainable and blah, 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 blah. Well, obviously, if Mars was, let's say, warmer and it did have water in the mud, in the surface, when you take that away, the surface cracks because there's less atoms, obviously, covering the same space. So you can see cracks, very substantial cracks happening, like, mud flats and places like that. And they're big and substantial, like a 10-foot piece of mud, and then there'll be a 2-foot wide fissure that you could fall 6 feet down in, that kind of thing. So big canyons are just what happens when you take something out, you evaporate the moisture. It's not a big surprise. It's not, that's really hard to explain. No, I think it's pretty easy to explain.
These are the kind of questions I wasn't back then there. Then no humans were back there, When did life start? That was how many millions of years ago?
Yeah, I actually even have another question. Did life even start in the first place?
So again, so let's just make up crap about asteroids and all this kind of nonsense, totally unnecessary. So some more advanced life came to Earth and then it de-evolved into green slime or something. It arrived here with legs and arms as a little survivable organism and somehow it devolved into green slime. Oh, fuck.
I mean, there's just no proof that life, let's say, didn't exist eternally. You cannot prove that. Fundamentally.
So again, this is just more people trying to make science fit their religion. Why would you even doubt the origins of life being on this planet? I mean, where's the evidence, the reasoning for doubting that any necessity to say life was always here when it clearly has evolved, and clearly it evolved in bizarre stages and with completely different flora and fauna. The ocean was full of giant trilobites and all kinds of shit, and it ain't full of that shit anymore, and it's clearly a different place. Oh, fuck these people.
You can only, make conjectures, let's say, according to our current dating methods.
There's lots of information, I'm just saying, so yes, they have lots of little pieces of evidence, and you can decide to ignore 70% or 80% of the evidence to pretend there's some sort of reason to believe. But there really isn't if you look at the evidence fairly.
Etc. Like the oldest fossils are, let's say, appear to be 4 billion years old, but...
So there, that's just complete nonsense. There's no oldest fossil that's 4 billion years old, so that's just crap. The planet's 4 billion years old. The whole fucking planet. There's no fossil because the planet was molten and shit when it started. It was getting bombarded all the time. Jeez.
Well, how do we know that, let's say, decay rates are constant? We actually know they're not constant, you know. Nuclear decay.
But we also know that the controls, in the sense that there's places where the decay is consistent because, it's consistent with what's in other items that look obviously to be known to be a certain age. And so there seems to be quite a bit of consistency in decay rates, not inconsistency. The evidence is predominantly on the side of consistency rather than inconsistency. It's rare circumstances that inconsistency is found, and that's usually the rare circumstances. Again, it had to be filtered somehow, where the uranium was more dense and therefore decayed quicker.
C14 dating, things like that.
Well, I suppose the way that they would do it is that they could find fossils, and then they could date the rocks around the fossils, and then they could estimate how long plate tectonics has been going on for. How long is... that was another thing that I don't think would have a beginning, which is plate tectonics. I would think that would have happened from day one on the planet Earth.
So, yeah, like you thought that planet Earth was just created in one day, or just flew in here. So, what's his foundational argument to arguing that somehow the plates would be here all the time on Earth, because Earth was always Earth, when the argument is that Earth wasn't Earth. Earth was made by a bunch of shit hitting it and making Earth. Okay, Earth didn't arrive here as Earth.
Or is there evidence that there was no plate tectonics, and then at some point it started up?
Well, yeah, this is exactly the point.
Yes, this is exactly the point, that if you take a bunch of compounds and then you heat it, what will happen is the elements will separate, and we already know that. That's why there's veins of gold. That's why there's veins of silver. That's why there's veins of everything, is because it ends up segregating. But that's exactly how it happens, is through heat. Heat makes it segregate. The atoms end up filtering because of temperature into certain locations and densities, and they become purified that way. No big deal, no huge surprise.
I was making, it's not my discovery. I actually referenced one guy right there in the introduction. Like, I think it's one of the first references I give.
He has no clue. Again, this argument doesn't survive any kind of scrutiny. Doesn't make any sense at all. Bacteria cannot create high pressure. This is nonsense.
It could be just that meteorites are just junk from space, falls onto Earth, and that's what's making it bigger. In which case, it's increasing in diameter and increasing in mass, and then the laws of gravity could remain the same, I think.
So the rest of the video had all this
the
feedback.
Continents on the Earth are only like 1/3 of the surface. You need to increase the size of the Earth quite significantly. I cannot make the calculation like off the top of my head, but it's like maybe 1.5 times bigger, about so. To transition from.
So like they have these, like I said, there's no point in watching this stuff. I would just give it up. Franklin, who somehow thinks atoms are created inside the Earth is therefore expanding because matter is being created in the Earth. It's just again, how much scrutiny can that kind of a theory withstand? But who's going to waste their time going through and figuring out all the arguments against any such nonsense? I'm just saying that you go through what we know to be true, and then you have to figure out, certain elements couldn't create crystals if they were under higher gravity or less gravity. They wouldn't create crystals in the same way they created them. Stalagmites and stalactites wouldn't work the same. Lots of things would break down as geology. The geology wouldn't work anymore. And you'd have to explain how you can make it work in your different environment. Just as I've pointed out, the atmosphere needs the gravity that exists for the atmosphere to exist in its density, and it gets lighter and lighter and thinner the less gravity there is, And so how could you gain enough oxygen even to survive if we were living on a lighter Earth?
Growing Earth people, or would point at saying that is equivalent to tectonic activity, I guess.
Well, yeah. Well, there are many theories about how this thing formed. I mean, there's a electric/plasma universe. People who believe that it might have been some electrical machining of the surface. Like, let's say during a very strong solar storm. Like a massive emission of matter.
Whatever. So this is just pull out of your ass hour and a half. Just pull shit out of your ass. Don't argue the evidence. Don't argue anything rational. Just speculate about bullshit. What if gremlins really did run the universe?
Say that dark matter and dark energy composes 96% of the universe, and regular matter and energy composes 4% of the universe.
Yes, that's silly. So that's a good thing to argue, but they don't argue with any facts, so there's just no point. Bill says he has the answer for all of that. And
we need to fix these things because it makes science move in the wrong direction, but it does make it so that people can enter their politics into science.
Now,
and that's exactly what you want to do, is enter your politics into science, your politics of God reverence or whatever. So you're just as dangerous. I would argue that, yes, conventional physics is a bunch of woo-fights, and you're just complaining because they've chosen the wrong woo, the wrong religion.
Scrolling through the wiki page on general relativity, and even after glancing through all of this, I still don't see an actual reasonable explanation of what the heck they're talking about. See, this is the problem with talking about general relativity, because you don't even know what they're talking about. They're just like talking around it, and there are these equations, but none of this is gelling for me as an actual explanation. So I don't know how anyone can look at this and seriously consider that this.
Well, it's just a description of a fake model for the inverse square law. So, it's not that complicated in some respects in recognizing that part of it. But, the time dilation part should be a giveaway in the sense that the idea that gravity is acceleration, and that we're still accelerating when we're sitting on the Earth, and recognizing that the consequence of that is that we're moving, pieces of us are moving, and that they would be doing a lot of moving because, like a bouncing basketball, it's traveling much faster than the person bouncing the ball.
This is actually really explaining anything. We have these equations, and presumably, they predict some things, and I don't know how. And this is the first point I was trying to make.
Well, you're not really making a point, so I don't, just badly reading the page isn't helping any. You ought to just quote a line in it and then say, well, what does that mean?
Relativity comes into play. That if they had two black holes and they were circling around each other, what kind of signal would that produce?
And again, as I've pointed out, there's no signal it can produce without their theory of converting mass into energy, or bent space in this case. So they have to convert the mass into some capacity to stretch space in one direction and compress space in another direction to create this wave that they're creating. It's not a real gravitational wave, it's a mass conversion wave. So that's the first lie of the LIGO thing, is that they're not talking about a wave created by changing something's position in space. They're talking about a wave being created by converting mass into some sort of bent space, which doesn't make any sense, into some form of radiation that we somehow can't detect as radiation or something. Some kind of, it's just woo. But the idea that two objects this way is different than two objects this way gravitationally is true. This is stronger than this. As an average of the center of gravity of the two objects, it changes a little. The center of object moves a little closer to you, the center of gravity, and it moves a little away from you. So it's a little tiny difference between this and this. So the signal is going 99%, and then it's 99, 100, 99, 100, 100. So there's a frequency being created, a period representing this, that is possible to be produced. But as Einstein pointed out, there would be no hope of detecting it at any distance at all. It would become indecipherable as an effect because it's so minute, a change in the distance. And that's where they come up with this preposterous crap that they're detecting the width of a hair on Alpha Centauri. You know, they're seeing how thick a hair is on some star a billion light years away, or whatever it is. You know, 100 million light years away, whatever the right number is. And it's just a preposterous statement. It just doesn't make any sense at all.
So, because the problem with LIGO is that
I mean, it's, you know, it's been
LIGO
said so many times, LIGO. I don't know why he's saying LIGO. You know, it's just kind of funny. He speaks pretty good English. I don't
pinpoint where the signal came from. So, but I guess when they went looking in the general vicinity, you know, they found something that
Yeah, they found a supernova is what they found, nothing else. I mean, they just made up a whole big story about what that was also. So anyway, and the irony is the third detector actually, they included it in the results. So, you know, Franklin doesn't realize they've made 5 of these things, or at least 4 of them now. And the third one was online, but their excuse was it was in its blind spot. So they included it as being part of the validation of the third detector because, well, of course, it was in the place it can't see, so that must mean it's valid.
So technically, you are correct. Like this, let's say, theory or a hypothesis or whatever you want to call it, is not needed in this sense. Like there are explanations, but at the same time, well, I mean, I just had this idea and I wanted to.
So he's conceding that you don't. That we already have valid explanations for earthquakes, and yet he wants to find some new stupid one and blame it on bacteria somehow. I mean, he's conceding it's crap science.
you know, Star Trek things like our cell phone, which just very much like the Star Trek communicator. So that has gone from like science fiction to actual science, right? But and so that's our hard science now. But when it first came out with something like that, that was certainly self-consistent, that you could have some kind of device you could put in your pocket, you open it up, it communicates across long distances. And at the time, there's just absolutely no way anything like that could have possibly existed, right? But it was self.
Well, frankly, I don't know if it seemed even that impossible, but whatever. I mean, it was easy to imagine miniaturization, so, you know, I mean, obviously we can imagine nanotechnology now without too much trouble, you know, realistically. We don't have it, but we can imagine it.
The absolute majority, like 95 or maybe even more percent of all the microorganisms on Earth were not detected because they cannot be grown in a laboratory. So you basically take a...
So that's just more nonsense, pseudoscience crap. I mean, he makes lots of claims about bacteria that's just nonsense, like we have 40 pounds of it in our body or some other bullshit that's just not true, blah, 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 blah. Preposterous
bacteria to come to
exaggerations.
life, I mean, for these spores. But they're most likely they're there. And
so bacteria, as far as I know, do not have spores, but whatever. You know, whatever.
To take all this data into account. And what I don't like about many of the scientific experimenters in these fields is they deliberately ignore some of this data. They might not exist.
Yeah, the experiments never done that you cite, for example. So the rest of the thing was just dominated by this Bill character and just talking about church and state and all kinds of crap, and yeah, just horrible.
Faraday's law, Ampere's law, Lenz's law, and Lorentz's law. Simultaneously, you find that
so whatever, if you do every equation on Earth simultaneously, somehow you find out something. You know, you don't find out anything that way. So anyway, it's just complete nonsense. So anyway, enough of this crap. It really was horrible and such. So yeah, not much else happening, unfortunately. So, till the next time, I guess. I'm working on the website a bit, and the animation will soon be added. So I have corrected some of this text, so it's more correct in how it's stated, and then there'll be a nice new image of this all moving around and blah 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 blah. So, working on stuff. I'm going to change this feature over here. I mean, this is just, I gotta update the videos, of course, get the newer ones up here, and then I'll have a little thing here you can click, and then you can get to the definitions video and 2+2 overview, underview videos, and something like that, and relevant links and whatnot, and blah 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 blah. So, till the next time, and such and so forth and whatnot. Yeah, I think that's all that's relevant. You don't need that. That ain't gonna help you, Gary. Totally superfluous to my purposes. So, till the next time, and such, so forth and whatnot.